I know we want our beloved scriptures to be these ironclad facts, but they're not. Sola Literalis is a lie, and fundamentalists have spent almost 2 millennia perpetuating said lie by trying to peddle this idea that the Genesis narrative is historical fact. It's not. It's a mystical allegory written by a spiritual master who used it as a tool to teach his students how to peer beyond physicality. In fact, the OG of all prophets flat out tells us our minds may never know God's true essence. I could get really detailed, but the simple answer is God does not fit in a box. All this feminine and masculine aspect of divinity is meant to convey is that the whole universe oscillates in a wave of cosmic possibilities we may never truly understand. So that's what I want to get in today, so rock with it as we take that journey within. It's your guy Justin, and I'm ready to get it in. So Genesis 1:2 says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved across the face of the waters. Tohu wa bohu, without form and void." This expression describes the condition of earth before God ever uttered a word. Tohu is unique in Hebrew and doesn't really have an English translation. So we use words like unformed, chaos, or inconceivable, because it suggests a totality of a creative potential that overwhelms our human calculation. David Smith summed it up even nicer when he said, "To the human mind, the power of Bereshit becomes tohu. The power of tohu that overwhelms the meager human sense of order is kept in balance by the power of bohu. Bohu is the empty receptivity of space that is inherently contextual. Its context allows the potency of tohu to continually adapt to ever-changing needs." We're literally talking about a primordial purity completely beyond our ability to duplicate. Can we create the universe? Could we make all things exist at once without actually being a specific part of it or separate from the whole? Probably not. Plenty of Christian philosophers have wrestled with this concept and painted out the formless void as an invisible world that needed the light of creation shone on it to be. While there are obvious doctrinal reasons for these interpretations, I question why we've run with it for as long as we have. I mean, there are mystical implications to that, but we'll get into that in a second. See, we see these waters of chaos teeming with the infinite possibilities as spirit moves across their face. The visible waters of the invisible Spirit of God represent the same unity found in our lamp of the body meditations. Water is observed and spirit is observant. Thus is the true nature of existence. Water without spirit and spirit without water are equally crippled. Spirit requires a material body fits to lead a corporeal existence, and it's the breath of God that causes existence to be that needs a vessel. Remember, Moshe was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Nun and Naunet, water and chaos, symbolize the watery mass of indiscriminate chaos the people of Kemet associated with creation. Nun is associated with water because of semen's watery nature, and Naunet was a snake-headed lady that presided over the water. It's Egyptian. So even before Solomon married a Pharaoh's daughter, the cultures of the ancient world were already familiar. And we should always consider how the creation epics of cultures mirror each other or invert terminology. These are the markers of deeper spiritual practices that we can draw from later. Now, think of Solomon describing the origin of woman wisdom. "The Lord begot me, the beginning of his works, the forerunners of his deeds of long ago. From of old I was formed, at the first, before the earth, there was I, beside him as artisan, and I was his delight daily, rejoicing always before him." Wisdom was with the Lord as the universe we experience came into being. Her soul is like a paint set directed by infinite will. This is the reason that all of the particles and forces comprising the universe are interconnected. Think about how every particle in existence has awareness of every other particle there is. Everything abides in a wave of infinite possibilities until we observe them, causing them to collapse into particles we can physically see. Since the wave functions between particles collapse at a rate faster than anything we know of, the moment they're observed, science has concluded that everything in the universe shares a singular source. The universe is self-aware. When he fixed the foundations of the earth, there I was beside him as artisan. In the formless, inconceivable void that existed before the world could be, God created wisdom. She is the governing principle that represents the world's soul and carries all the potential for life in her womb. But for a brief moment in cosmic time, she was the only companion of the Infinite One. Proverbs describes her as God's delight, playfully interacting with him before anything else was made. We see this joyful interaction of laughter and delight taking center stage as creation came into being. Creation takes place in an expression of love. Solomon made wisdom a central theme in his works. Look at the instructions he gives his son in Proverbs 2. Seek her like silver, and like hidden treasures, search her out. Then you will understand fear of the Lord. The knowledge of God you will find. Listen to what he's telling us. He literally says, she is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare to her. He literally tells his sons to forget everything else and get wisdom. Well, how does one get wisdom? Revere God first. He uses the phrase, Yirat Yehovah, fear or awe of God, 14 times in Proverbs. Granted, we should probably fear the ruling power behind existence and honor it with reverential awe, but it goes a bit deeper. It's not like the mere act of respecting God gives us instant access to all the accumulated wisdom of the cosmos anyways. Solomon wrote Yirat, fear, with two nouns. When a noun precedes another noun, its first noun is in the construct state, meaning it is connected to the second noun, bringing the two together to form a singular concept. The root word for Yirat is yara. The root word for Yirat being yara, flow, in the sense of flowing, is in rivers of water or flows from the gut. Well, what does the sense of water flowing out of our gut have to do with fear of the Lord? The sense of flowing is found throughout the Hebrew scriptures and is riddled with these same sort of noun-noun constructs. Ru'ahh Elohim, the Spirit of God, being the one that's relevant to our discussion here. This is the same Spirit of God that hovered over the waters in Genesis 1-2 that we discussed, flowing into a primordial, chaotic possibility before it needed to be. The fear of God is a spring of living water so you won't go off drinking from poisoned wells. Ever felt something in the pit of your stomach and just knew? We experience this flowing of God as a gut feeling, the still, small voice that acts as a moral compass when we may be making a mistake with devastating consequences. What Solomon is saying is that the beginning of wisdom is to be totally immersed in the living waters of the Spirit that flows through the core of our being. We are being called to revere the source of life within all things. That's the gift of wisdom. Now, she isn't the complete picture. Just as our subconscious souls only come into being through conscious awareness, the entire emanation from the infinite is conscious and awake. In the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos is with God, and the Logos was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and apart from him, not even one thing came into being that has come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of humankind. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not grasp it. In the beginning was Logos, or reason, word, thought, as in the cosmic mind of God type thoughts, right? We were talking about the hand that is moving the paint set I associated with Sophia earlier. We can clearly see that the Word was with God because the Word was God. Nothing in that statement makes Sophia and Logos the same concept. All of that confusion surrounding Sophia and Logos comes from our inability to grasp the totality of the creative potential the infinite, unknowable one expresses through them. Lots of scholars have screwed that up. Let us use a simple analogy for it. The kingdom is the canvas and Sophia is the paint set. Logos is the hand that moves the paintbrush in whatever direction the infinite desires. The Lord created me as his first course. Before his works of old, from eternity I was established. From the beginning, from the earliest times of the earth. Sophia is a divine being. As I said before, spirit is required for a material body if it's to lead a corporal existence. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters in a transformative process that took place over an indescribable nothing with limitless possibility Genesis simply calls the void. We can't fully comprehend the primordial chaos that served as the condition of earth before God uttered a word. All we know is Sophia was present with God. We find Sophia before the Logos was spoken because he was in the beginning with God. She was playing before him all the while, and they found delight and companionship in one another. All things came into being through the one. Consider the concept of tohu wabohu in relation to what the visible waters and the invisible Spirit of God represent. We find a lot of reflection and mirroring of God, but never a definite truth beside one. God's true essence is so far beyond our human capacity to talk about that Moshe doesn't even use the real name in the Genesis account. What do you think Hashem means? The name. It's our reverential awe for a creative force so far beyond us that he didn't even feel it belonged in his lips. It's also why Second Temple rabbis never pronounced the true name of God outside a temple setting. In fact, it was never pronounced how it was written down to begin with. The prologue of John simply states, "In him was life, and the life was the light of humankind." What does light actually do? It illuminates. Sophia's soul was woven into the fabric of what was about to be, but what's hidden in the dark remains unseen. Without light, giving order to something chaotic, there was nothing to observe his delight and take an active role in creation. We were part of the ocean in intimate connection with the awe of God without any knowledge of self. There were no self-aware creatures to enjoy creation and experience the wave of infinite possibilities available because there was no I spoken into being. How would absolute oneness express itself as I? And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness. Genesis 1:3, we start seeing this polarity come out, right? But look, God said, God saw that the light was good. It's less literal, but more of a celestial observer effect. The universe became aware, and the seeds of life carried in Sophia's womb began to come into being. Thus is the nature of Sophia and Logos, their plurality oscillating in a divine flux between the passive and active aspects of creation. She is passive in the activity of creation because she is the reflection of eternal light, the spotless mirror of the power of God, and the image of his goodness. God's own desire. The entire epic is an unfolding of the divine will to be. The divine expression is love. So in the meantime, keep breathing in light and living in love. 1.